Okay, very good. All right. Well, um, this evening we're having a presentation by folks from the Citizens Climate Lobby. And so I'm going to turn it over to Judy Muth to introduce everybody, and thank you all.
Thank you, Mary. I really appreciate the introduction. So just for the league, for the invitation for us to come and talk a little bit about the Blue Citizens Climate Lobby and what we do. So I have tonight with me Kynan Witters-Hicks, who's going to be presenting about building electrification and efficiency, and Ozran Koma, who will be talking about our work with the cities. So Bobby, if you want to show the first slide, I'll get going.
Okay. Can you all see that?
Yes.
Okay, so Citizens Climate Lobby, first of all, is just part of our community. We have a lot of different kinds of people involved. And these are members of our group at one of the lentil parades, using some lighthearted signs to bring attention to the very real climate impacts on our ag community and our food supply. We, as I said, are part of the community at large, so we represent lots of people, and we are also nonpartisan. We're nonprofit and we're grassroots. And we're part of a larger, much larger organization. There are over 200,000 CCL members in the US, and over 50 countries have CCL chapters. And in general, all of us are working on building political will to create a more livable world by arresting climate change. And what we do locally, we act in lots of ways to do that. We offer education and training to really just empower people to get involved, to use their power in a democracy. So we offer information on climate issues and proposals, and we train folks to communicate respectively and effectively with people from all political stripes. We register people to vote. We table at farmers markets and events to give out information and let people ask questions. We encourage people to write letters and train them sometimes if they've never done that before and are timid about it, to write letters and op-eds to the paper to say what they want about climate change and about action on it. And we present at various venues and organizations, do a lot of outreach to different groups, including students, farmers, faith groups, Chamber of Commerce, involved with all of those. And of course, we lobby. So we do that by offering opportunities to people and training if they haven't done it before to lobby. And we, for instance, have worked with our high school students locally and our university students to train them to lobby, get them up to speed and get past that point of being so nervous they can hardly talk, to actually go and with us to Washington, D.C. and lobby. And then also they do that virtually. And we've lobbied some of our state legislators as well. So those are some of the things that we do. Could I have slide 2, Bobby?
Can you see that?
Yeah, I can. Thank you. So just one second. So these are 4 areas that CCL is working on. I just wanted to briefly tell you why we are working on these particular areas, and we do this locally to nationally. So the first is the thinking about putting a price on carbon, which is a fee, a gradually rising fee or tax on carbon pollution. And it is becomes a dividend. As soon as it comes into the government, it cycles back out as a dividend to be equitably distributed among people in the US. And it includes a carbon border adjustment, which is really important because that incentivizes other nations to put a price on carbon, which means we see a global reduction in emissions. This would help us get to 0 emissions by 2050 because it's an economy-wide price. And it would actually mean more affordable and reliable energy because you have more clean energy coming on board. And right now, that's the cheapest energy that you can put into place. It puts money back in people's pockets and protects most people. Over 70% of people get back more than they would be paying extra because of a fee, or they break even with that dividend coming back to them. And because it reduces air pollution, it saves lives. Now, the second thing on this list is not what I'm going to talk about right now. I'm going to talk about permitting reform, and that is down at the bottom of the list. But this may be a term that you're unfamiliar with, because I sure was not very long ago. But it's become a really hot button item on Capitol Hill. If you can imagine, one of the things that actually has bipartisan support is permitting reform. And one of the reasons that's the case is that right now it takes about 11 years for a project to be proposed and then go through the permitting process and be built. And because of that, we will never get to the emissions goals that most of the US entities, federal government for one, has set, or the Paris Agreement, if we have that kind of infrastructure delay. So we want permitting reform that's comprehensive, but that doesn't sacrifice the environment, and to make sure that local communities get to say what happens in their community. But this will work in part because all of the projects that are proposed right now, all of them, 92% of them are solar and wind. So we're bringing clean energy on, and we're displacing fossil fuel energies. It will mean jobs and economic growth in rural areas, because that's where the plants will be built, and that's where the transition lines will be built and maintained. And again, bringing on that clean energy will reduce pollution, air pollution, so it'll increase health across the board, but especially in cities. The third area that I wanted to visit about is healthy forests, and this is a new area for CCL. And we have just recently established a healthy forest team in our local group. But one of the reasons that it's become so important is that the forests that we have right now pull 12% of our carbon emissions out of the air every year. And if we plant new forests in areas where it makes sense to plant them and use climate smart ways and technologies to manage them, we can raise that level to an actual 22% drawdown of carbon by 2030. And of course, trees save lives in hot cities, on hot days, because they bring the temperature down. That's especially important in low-income neighborhoods, which tend to be hotter. They reduce the grid strain on cities because they reduce the demand for air conditioning. And they support community well-being in general, because studies have shown that they increase the well-being of people in terms of mood, and they lower blood pressure. They also work together with the community to bring people together and to increase jobs. This year, CCL established a team, like I said, and we've been working to do several projects. We planted trees and shrubs and forbs and raised the money to buy those supplies. And in Pullman, we worked with the Pullman Parks and Rec Department and planted the area that's just across the road from the new City Hall. You may have seen that area kind of sprout out with little trees and tubes. And so we've maintained those over the summer, watered them, and they're doing really well. We've lost a few, and those will be replanted soon. In Moscow, we worked with the Palouse Prairie School, and there the teachers and kids all got involved, and so it's lots of fun. They just had a ball, and they have maintained their own plantings then through the entire summer and fall. And we've continued to work with the conservation districts on plantings, and also with the Palouse Clearwater Environmental Institute. Right now, we're looking for projects. So if you have an idea, if you know of an area that might support trees or shrubs or forbs, and especially if you know the landowner or have any idea about how that place works, we would love to hear from you and kind of get started on that again, because our team is actually looking for projects at this point. That fourth area, building electrification and efficiency, Kynan is going to talk about in just a second. But I want to show you why CCL is working on these 4 areas. So if you could give me the next slide, Bobby, that would be great.
Whoops, there we go.
Okay, so this slide is showing the now I can't see it, just a second. Okay, This slide is showing the U.S. greenhouse gas emissions annually from 2005 to 2030. And that blue line, that squiggly line across the top, is our actual emissions over the years. So you can see we're kind of headed in the right direction for sure. Because of efficiency and innovation, we're bringing down our emissions. The dotted line across the middle of the graph is 50% below 2005 emissions level. So what we were emitting in 2005 at the top of that left-hand blue line, 50% below that is that dotted line across there. So if we were to continue business as usual, we wouldn't get to a goal of saying we're going to drop down to 50% below the 2005 level by the year 2030. We wouldn't get there. We would be instead at the top of that red wedge, only at 28% below 2005 levels. But if we institute that red wedge, which represents permitting reform, then we drop pretty quickly and we get to 40%. And then if we put that blue wedge in, which is a carbon price, we get to 52%. So we're now below our goal. And then we put the green wedge in, and that is forestry. And that brings us down again. And then the the gray wedge is building electrification and efficiency. And that takes us to actually 60%. So that gives us some wiggle room. And hopefully we will actually get to that goal of 50% below 2005 level by the year 2030. But we need to get those policies in place, and that's why CCL is working on them. So Kynan, you want to tell us about building electrification and efficiency?
Sure, happy to. Can everyone hear me okay?
You're good.
Okay, great. Yeah, so if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, Bobby. Great. So building electrification and efficiency is also a new initiative for CCL. And even though it is the smallest wedge on that graph that was just shown, I would argue that it actually has a very significant role to play in our overall transition, primarily because electrification is going to allow our homes and businesses to be powered by renewable energy. So currently about 3/4 of Americans heat and cook with gas, so fossil fuels. And in order to meet our carbon reduction goals through use of renewable energy, we have to convert our appliances over to electrified appliances, away from fossil fuel powered appliances. And at the same time, efficiency is going to be important as well for being able to meet the demand with renewables. It's a big ask in order to increase the generation of renewables. So if we are reducing the amount of energy that we need, that's going to help us meet that goal as well with electrification. The great thing about energy efficiency is that it's the cheapest source of energy not used. And it can save people a lot of money. And there are a lot of opportunities to do that, especially for low-income households. So there is an effort to increase awareness and opportunities for weatherization, things like improving insulation, window efficiency, that sort of thing for homes, which is going to reduce energy bills quite a bit. I saw an estimate of for lower income households, it could save up to 35% of their energy bill each year. And then same thing with electrified appliances. Many of those appliances actually are more efficient than fossil fuel powered appliances. And so those are going to lower the cost of energy bills for households over time. A couple of other benefits that we see is that electrified appliances contribute to cleaner indoor air quality. Sometimes indoor air quality can be worse than outdoor air quality, even in densely populated cities sometimes. So that's a huge benefit to households. And then it also is going to create jobs, local contractor jobs, in order to retrofit our homes with new appliances. So lots of benefits along with reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. Bobby, if you don't mind going to the next slide. So the effort to promote awareness about electrification and efficiency really is in line with many of the incentives that are part of the Inflation Reduction Act that was passed by the federal government not too long ago, maybe 6 months ago. I don't remember exactly. But one of the things that we want to educate people on are the many benefits that they can take advantage of from the Inflation Reduction Act. So there are potentially $14,000 in rebates for homeowners for weatherization and electrification. And I think that this graphic is helpful for showing the different kinds of things that you can use that money for. And there's actually two different financial incentives. One side is rebates. So that's actually money off the upfront cost of something. So for example, a heat pump clothes dryer, you could get $840 off the upfront cost of that, which is a huge financial benefit, especially for lower and medium income households. The second incentive is a tax benefit, which is not as immediate, but still can be really beneficial. So you can see that there are multiple opportunities. Pretty much anything that uses energy in our home, our heating systems, transferring over to heat pumps, our electrical panels, our vehicles, appliances like dryers, and then adding solar power to our homes, solar and batteries, there's money for that as well. So lots of opportunities, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the initiatives that we've taken so far. One of the big ones has been to start to disseminate information about these opportunities. A great organization that is promoting and sharing information about this is called Rewiring America. I don't know if you can see this pamphlet very well. I have a pamphlet in my hands with lots of information that I recently dropped off at the Pullman Public Library for people to take, and we're evaluating other places where we might put those pamphlets. I was thinking maybe realtor offices. So we're trying to get information out to homeowners and business owners. There's also many benefits available for contractors. So we recently aggregated some information on benefits to contractors, and we left a number of copies at the Pullman Building Department, hopefully, so contractors will see those. We've also had some conversations with contractors in the area just to see what they know about the benefits that are available and some of the technologies of these appliances like heat pumps, and that sort of thing. And then we also have a column in the Moscow Pullman Daily News called Saving Green column, green as in money, but also environmental, where we've published articles with information about, for example, I recently published one on heat pumps. I believe we have one coming up on solar energy efficiency. So hoping that will get the word out as well. I think that's about it. Anything I'm missing, Judy?
No, I don't think so. I think it's good to go. We can certainly fill in any gaps when we get to a question and answer period too. So, thank you, Kynan. Austrian, you want to
Yeah.
chip in now?
Hello, everyone. My name is Azdran Koma, and I'm here to talk about the Citizens Climate Lobby's collaboration with the local government in the effort to address climate change. So we've had significant partnership with the Pullman city government, and I'd like to shed some light on our involvement and the impact of our collective efforts. In 2018, the Citizens Climate Lobby sponsored a city resolution in Pullman calling for action on climate change. As part of our initiatives, we proposed a city goal for the comprehensive plan that emphasized climate change mitigation and adaptation, but regrettably, our proposal did not find its way into the final plan. However, this marked the beginning of our journey to collaborate and advocate for climate action in our community. Fast forward to 2021, and we actively participated in the comprehensive plan once again. This time, we successfully added statements about climate action. It's essential to note that the comprehensive plan is an ongoing endeavor and our involvement remains critical. Our commitment to addressing climate change extends beyond Pullman. We've actively engaged with Moscow through their Citizen Climate Action Working Group. Moscow's dedication to addressing climate change aligns with our broad regional approach. And in our 2021 and 2022 Pullman Climate Change Survey was it was a survey which was instrumental in understanding the desires and of Pullman's residents concerning climate change mitigation and adaptation. The survey result played a vital role in shaping Pullman's sustainability approach. Can you go to slide 7, please? Yeah, so some of the key findings included that residents are concerned about climate change, and residents indicated a desire for the city to lead efforts to address climate change and open-ended questions. Residents suggested many ways that the city can act on climate change. And finally, residents indicated a willingness to volunteer to help in any efforts. And on slide 7.
Oops.
Austrian, that's the last one.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. So when exploring more specific concerns of residents regarding climate change, residents expressed health concerns, with one resident saying, with changing climates, especially this past summer's heat dome, I had to rescue one elderly neighbor, unaware of the dangers that she was in. Residents have also highlighted the water insecurity which comes with climate change, as well as the changing impact of weather. Relating to agriculture, one respondent emphasized that weather variability and temperatures may require farmers to change farming procedures and crops, and thus increase the already difficult farm management situation. And with regard to energy and climate, one resident suggested ways to prepare for the future, saying that the city ought to subsidize old construction and or renew new construction to have energy efficient appliances and solar power when appropriate. Finally, one resident emphasized the need to create better safety nets for our communities with people who are adversely affected by climate change. So in response to the survey's findings, the Pullman city government established the Environmental Sustainability Resiliency Commission. I'm a proud member. I'm proud to be an appointment member of the commission. So the mission is to develop and recommend innovative and collaborative actions for the city and the community to mitigate climate change and build equity, resilience, and sustainability into the missions of our community. So the commission is still new, but one of the ways in which we aim to achieve our goals is by establishing a newsletter which aims to directly communicate the climate-related initiatives by the city. In addition, the commission is actively seeking the input of the community on climate-related initiatives. And finally, in continuation with the efforts of the CCL, climate-related recommendations and amendments were recently made to the Pullman City Plan, which align with the goals of the CCL. And I want to emphasize that the commission invites public input and feedback in person at the monthly meetings, which are held on the first Friday of each month at 3 p.m. And the meetings are held at the City Hall. That's what I had prepared for tonight, and I'll stick around for questions.
Thank you, Austrian.
Shall I keep these
that
up or
we can close the slides down.
Okay.
The last thing that,
Maybe we can unshare. Stop sharing.
okay, there we go. The last thing that I think Mary and I had talked about discussing was the work that CCL does with universities. And with both WSU and U of I, we present pretty regularly in classes and at events. And we collaborate with student organizations. The WSU Environmental Sustainability Alliance, which is kind of like an umbrella of all of those groups that might have interest in it. We share a lot of members with them, and so we work on a lot of different kinds of things, including Get Out the Vote and the WSU Fossil Fuel Divestment Campaign, campus cleanups, lots of things. And with U of I, we have worked with their Sustainability Center on a number of Earth Day projects and also other educational events. And then we do educational programming with the universities as well. We connect speakers with the Foley Institute at WSU. And also we organized an ag, soil, and climate change forum that involved U of I faculty and ag organizations and lots of farmers and ranchers from around the area. And I guess the last thing is that once in a while we get asked to be involved in a grant project, primarily as the community group that a grant project would work with. And so far, none of those have been funded that I know of. So hoping for one at some point. Yeah, so that kind of wraps it up. So as Osdren said, we're ready for questions just to broaden the conversation.
I have a question.
Sure.
It's not clear to me how I collect on these benefits that you had that little house, but I did get a new induction cook stove. So I'm very interested in the $840. How does that work?
Yeah, it's a good question. So there's two different methods, as I talked about before. One is a rebate and one is a tax credit. For the rebates, they are focused on lower and middle income households. So you first have to determine if you qualify for the upfront rebates, and I am actually going to put a link in the chat with a great website. This is Rewiring America, where you can type in your location, household income, that sort of thing, and it'll tell you exactly what you qualify for. For the rebates, the money for that is coming from the Department of Energy and funneled to local state agencies, state energy agencies. That is going a little slowly right now. And last I heard, don't expect the money to be available in some places until 2024, which is a little unfortunate. Tax credits, on the other hand, you should be eligible to receive the tax credit in 2023 on your 2022 for the 2022 financial year. So if you got an induction stove this year, you should be able to get a tax credit on your 2023 return. As far as, if you qualify for a rebate, I think that you could still apply in a later year for that rebate for a previous year. That's something I'd have to look into, but I think there is that option to do that.
Great, thank you.
And I have a question, a follow-up on that. Is that if you're converting from gas to electric, is that what you have to do to qualify for this? Or is upgrading to a more efficient electric appliance qualify?
So I think they're typically technology specific. And so they are rebates and tax incentives on a specific technology. For heating, those would be heat pumps. So a heat pump for your heating and cooling, and then a heat pump for your water heating as well. There are also some efficiency performance-based incentives as well. I don't know as much about how to capture that money, but it's essentially if you get a contractor, I think, to measure a certain efficiency performance of a new system, then I think there's potentially some money there as well. But yeah, I need to look into that a little bit more to fully understand how to capitalize on that.
Kind of in the link that you shared, once you
Yeah.
enter your information, there is a because I was just checking it out for myself, and there is a link directly that talks about how to capture that money for the heat pump, and that's like the first item in there. So
Great, thanks, Asdrin. Yeah.
I have a question about your articles in the paper. When you do that like as a letter to the editor? Do you write a regular article? When should we look for those? I just haven't seen any, so I've missed them.
Yeah, Judy, do you want to speak to that?
I think they're coming out once a month, and I think they're coming out in correct me if I'm wrong, Astrid or Kynan, if you know differently, but I think they come out in the second section of the paper on a Saturday.
Oh, okay.
And it's called Saving Green.
Okay.
And it's an actual article, which it'll be from one of our members who's done the research on an area and has brought forth their research as applied to their local situation, sometimes their personal situation.
Okay. Thank you.
I've seen that.
I
I
have
have a
an-
question. Oh, go ahead.
Okay. Okay, well, I was going to ask about trees. What are all trees good carbon sequesters? Are some better than others? And what kind of trees are you planting?
Some of them are much better than others, I guess, because of the growth, the amount of growth. And young trees sequester more than older trees. So planting new forests is great, you know. And some of them are better because of the growth patterns. We are planting things that were endemic here so that they can grow eventually without having to be maintained by people. And I don't know the actual species, Mary. I'm not on that team, but I can get the information for you. And same way with the forbs and the shrubs, are trying to plant all things that are native so that they can take care of themselves.
Thank you. I would be interested. Yeah.
Okay, I'll put you in touch with Trish Hartzell. She's the head of that team. I don't know if you know her. She's at WSU. I mean, sorry, at U of I, but I'll get her email address to you.
Thank you.
So my question was about when working with the city, how much does cost enter into strategies of what you're recommending for them and their receptivity to whatever strategies you're suggesting, and what are you suggesting to them? You're muted.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I'm trying to tell my son to stop playing with the recorder at this very moment, which he rarely ever does. But so I mean, cost is definitely a problem, an issue at the moment. Because the initiative, the Climate Resiliency Commission is so new, we're still looking at like different approaches to how we can address our goals, and this is why we've been aiming to establish this newsletter and create this form of communication between the public and the commission. I mean, one of the things that the commission has discussed is seeking outside financing and grants in order to fund a lot of the projects. But again, like, we haven't necessarily settled on any projects in particular at the moment. And also more actively, like, our role has been, for example, in suggesting like language that more so aligns with the goals of the commission and the CCL in the Pullman city plan, which is currently being revised. So again, I mean, when it comes to actually like passing legislation or passing ordinances that cost money, like we haven't reached that step yet, but we're hoping more so to be a voice to hopefully guide the city in a direction that meets our goals in order to work towards a better environment for the town and the city and for the residents, and to be able to adapt to climate change better and to not contribute negatively. So
Thank you.
yeah, it's still early.
I have a question about your newsletter that you're thinking about.
Yeah.
Would that come out as a mailing, or how do you anticipate distributing that?
Yeah, so the first issue hasn't been distributed yet, and I think it will be attached to what the current Pullman city government releases. I think it's an e-newsletter,
Oh, okay.
and you're going to see information. If you're subscribed to that, you'll see information there, which begins to talk about the Climate Resiliency Commission. But in the future, we plan to have our own newsletter, and I mean, it's our goal is to distribute it electronically, and we'll have sign up links where you can do that, and this way you could be more up to date and as to like what's going on, and we're aiming it to be a source of better communication, and where you could provide more feedback for the commission. And so we'll provide things like links to surveys and stuff like that. So yeah, once I was going to say once we have established our own newsletter, I'll make sure to get it to Judy to distribute also to your group. So
Okay, I have another question. Are you aware of any legislation at the state level that's being discussed that we ought to be aware of?
About climate?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Well, I guess there is one right now that's called CARS, I think, or CAR. And I don't recall what that acronym stands for, but you probably know that there was a Climate Commitment Act that was passed a couple of years ago in Washington, which meant that we have basically a cap and trade system now, lowering our fossil fuel emissions by making it more expensive for folks to emit. And so that has, one of the effects of that has been that it has raised our gas pump prices. And there is I think it will be introduced in December. There will be a bill introduced that will be like a dividend back to people that says, when this money comes out, instead of putting it into a couple of funds, and one of them was kind of like a rainy day fund, instead of that, it ought to go back to people to help them adjust to this higher price at the gas pump. So I know that's happening. I'm assuming that it has the same background as the climate price at the national level. That idea is that you can make the fossil fuel price more expensive over time, and what will happen is that the energy producers and the large industries will be quick to switch over, because they can see that price coming and getting more expensive all the time, and they have the wherewithal to switch. So they switch very quickly, and they begin that transition, and that moves the whole economy away from fossil fuels. However, it means that all of us are also paying more, and while that's happening. And so the idea is that dividend at the national level comes back and protects people from that rising price while the transition takes place. And the same thing, I think, is what is behind this idea at the state level that's called CARS.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's just want to mention there's also legislation for utilities requiring utilities by 2030 to increase their proportion of renewable energy quite significantly. So, and the state has required utilities to come up with a plan and publish that plan for how they plan to increase their percentage of renewables. So that's good news as well.
Regarding that, I have a question. In the past, they have discounted all existing hydro. In the new plan, will hydro be included in the percentages of renewable? I mean, old hydro projects.
Yeah, as far as I know, old hydro is typically included in those. I think there's no. I think the state does not promote new large hydro, and they have certain requirements on any new renewables that is from hydro to be smaller hydro that doesn't have the same environmental impacts that large hydro does, as well as retrofits to current large hydro. I think it allows for provisions for that. But yeah.
I'm thinking of the initiative, is it 933? 930, anyway, it was where it was supposed to move us away from fossil fuel energy production. And what they did was all existing hydro plants were excluded from the numbers. So I'm wondering if this new one adjusts for that.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with
is it
933. I'll have to look at.
Judy, do you remember?
I don't. And I do recall there being something like that, but I don't recall what the provisions were.
Well, I can't. All I remember was being pissed because hydro didn't count. Existing hydro did not count.
Interesting.
So it was like for when they were calculating, we were going to be down, by a certain year we would be this much renewable energy. That was essentially the initiative.
Okay.
I just was wondering, because it seemed kind of ridiculous at the time, but
the more recent one that I'm thinking of is called the Clean Energy Transformation Act, which is passed in 2019.
No, this would have been earlier. So,
okay.
Unless it took that long to work through the system.
Yeah.
That could be the case too.
Absolutely. I wanted to you're probably all aware of this, but in case you don't know about it, the League of Women Voters has a wonderful initiative going on action on climate change. And at the national level, they've done some great work, and people collaborating from all over the country to bring ideas forward. And one of the things that they produced, which is really very useful, is they took a look at climate action plans around the country and in different cities, and looked at what was the most effective thing that cities could do and how they could do it. So I think it's got 2 parts of 10 points each. One of them is the actual action, and one of them is the policy that put it in place, something like that. But they have 10 points that they say, these are the 10 things to go for, and here are the 10 things to go for in this area. And those turned out to be the most effective things in cities across the board. So that's just one of the tools that they've come up with, but they do a great job.
So are there other chapters of the Citizens Climate Lobby that you're part of? I mean, are you a small part of a bigger whole? Or are you just your own thing here on the Palouse?
Well, we are on the Palouse, so we're actually, I guess you'd call us a regional chapter. We work with we have both members from Washington and Idaho. And in fact, I just looked up, we're going into a lobby meeting next week with Kathy McMorris Rogers' staff, and I just looked up where our members are from in the 5th district of Washington 05, from 37 different towns and communities in this district. I was just so surprised. Some of them I've never heard of before. I had to look them up and say, is that really in this district? So they're all across the board, but they aren't active in our chapter because they're farther away. So we regularly have some Clarkson folks joining us and some Spokane folks joining us, but there aren't any other CCL chapters in the 5th district. However, in Washington state, there are quite a few. And then of course, across the nation, like I said, there's over 200,000 members that are in chapters all over the place, but lots of folks.
That's great. That's good to
Yeah.
hear.
Mhm.
Maybe the news will spread.
Yeah. So I remember once before when we had members coming from fewer communities, talking to McMorris Rogers about the breadth of support, and it was easy to see it had a real effect. So it's good.
Wonderful.
Well,
Mhm.
Speaking of, congressional representatives, it seems to me that in many ways, this is a nonpartisan issue, although there are definitely different approaches. In terms of our local representatives at both the state and the federal level, have you in your work found any particular champions or people who are maybe less supportive of your work?
Well, at the state level, Cantwell years ago actually asked for a accounting of the cost of climate change. So she was looking for a number that said, tell me how much cost is being caused by climate change because of failed crops. Tell me how much is because of people who are dying with asthma because of pollution. And tell me this, tell me that. So she was looking for a very inclusive number. And I think she and a senator from Maine had gone together on this, and they were getting the Congressional Budget Office to look into it. And I don't think they ever got a number because it was too unwieldy. It was just, they just couldn't even, at that time, I don't think any of us even had an idea how far ranging that cost is. So she's been thinking about it for a long time. Murray is very interested in seeing some things happen. Kathy McMorris Rogers has certainly moved farther in the direction of actually taking climate action, and she's a champion of hydro. She's, really aggressive about getting relief for communities that have suffered forest fires, for instance, up around Spokane earlier, and then earlier down closer to us. So she's been working on that. So more in terms of adaptation, I guess, on her end than mitigation, not so much going after the causes.
Thank you.
Mhm. If any of you have ideas about those tree projects or anything else, I just want to say that we have a local website. The national website is a great one for all kinds of resources. But locally, we have some too. And if you want to contact us, it's cclpalouse.org. So you can get on there and get to our contact page and ask questions. Tell us what you think. Yeah.
Well, I'd be curious to know, are there advantages to like people planting one tree in their little town yards?
I would say yes, just for that health and well-being aspect, for sure. I know even some of the studies I've seen have even said that if you have one of those wall posters that's like a full wall of green trees, that'll do it. So we have some kind of a evolutionary button that gets kicked when you're around trees and in forest and in natural areas, I think, and even a representation of it helps. So yeah.
Well, in a community, if you could get all the neighbors to plant one tree, then you'd have a forest pretty soon.
Well, that's not small at all, because if you think about it, if you think about your own house, your own residence, if you have a tree outside your west side, you know what a difference it makes. So that one example there would make a big difference and make a difference on your own energy bill probably. And if everybody was able to do that, that's a good idea. Great initiative for the city itself to say, everybody plant a tree, one that will support itself. We don't take extra water.
All right, good.
I wanted to follow up on a question asked earlier about when rebates would be available for efficiency electrification. I looked up, so the money is coming through the Washington Department of Commerce, and they say that it will be available no earlier than mid-2024. So a little ways out, but I think we want to try to get out the information ahead of time so people know about it as much as possible so they can take advantage of it when it's there. They also said that there is money available for whole home energy efficiency improvements. So one of you asked a question about if you make a change that increases the efficiency, I think that probably would apply there.
Great, thank you.
Any more questions?
Well, if there aren't more questions, it's certainly been an interesting and informative hour. And I thank you all for your work as well as your time with us this evening. It's been very interesting. Thank you.
I agree. Thank you.
Thanks for the
listening.
opportunity.
Bye, Judy.
Bye-bye.
Thank
Thank
you.
you all.
Bye, everyone.
All right.
Bye-bye.